Hello and welcome to Fatima Today. This show is produced by the World Apostolate of Fatima, USA, Our Lady's Blue Army, and brings topics to you, our viewers, related to the events in the world today. We live in tumultuous times when logic seems to have disappeared and uncertainty hangs over us. Our hope on these programs is to address the issues of the day and find solutions through adherence to the laws of God, especially through the message of Fatima. We ask that you subscribe to this podcast.
Hello and welcome to Fatima Today, the podcast of the World Apostolate of Fatima, USA. In this series, we discuss world events in light of our Catholic faith, and particularly the message of Fatima. We ask that you subscribe to this podcast. I'm your host, David Carollo. In 1917, when Our Lady came to Fatima, she spoke of the troubles in the world and gave us solutions to solve them. She spoke particularly about Russia, which was at the time on the brink of installing an atheistic, totalitarian regime over the people. She also warned that if we do not heed her warnings and amend our lives, and to make reparation for sin, these errors of Russia would spread worldwide. The history of the past century is a testimony to the validity of her warnings in 1917. In 1991, after more than 70 years of controlled and mandated atheism in Russia, the Communist Party pulled from power, and religious freedom was open to that nation once again. Historically, this nation is dedicated to Our Lady. In 2007, we were invited to Moscow by Archbishop Kondrashevitz to a celebration and conference commemorating the 90th anniversary of the Fatima apparitions. It was during this visit that my guest today, Dr. Dr. Khrol, was at the pod that we met and began a friendship and a collaboration in this time. Dr. Khrol is a professor, or formerly was a professor at Lomonosov Moscow State University in the Russian capital. He was also very instrumental in restoring the Cathedral when it was returned to the church in, I believe, 1995. In addition, he published the first Catholic newspaper in Russia, Svet Evangelia, after the restoration of the institutional church. Welcome, Victor.
Hello.
Thank you for being here today. It's a good. It takes a long time to explain everything about your
yes,
your work.
But I'm coming from very conservative part of Catholic world.
Yes.
So Lithuania, Poland.
That's correct.
And that place is we still greet one another. Laudetur Jesus Christus in Latin manner. So I greet you with this greeting, Laudetur Jesus Christus, and I hope to tell you something that is unknown, and it will help you to understand better what is happening in Russia.
I guess where do we start? I like I say, our friendship goes back, say, 15 years now from when we went to Moscow in 2007, and it was a really great experience. I do recall walking in the cathedral. Now here it is, the 90th anniversary of Fatima, and I had grown up with the Fatima message. I was the head of this apostolate, and I remember looking, and even though everything was in Cyrillic script, I could see right away. It said Fatima 1917, Moscow 2007. And it was beautiful, and the devotion of Archbishop Kondrashevitz and yourself, of course, working with him. I don't think he could have done much without you. He always spoke so highly of your assistance in restoring the church. Tell us a little bit about what you found when you received the cathedral back.
We all are instruments in the hands of God. So it was a long story and painful story of getting back the cathedral. Yeah. But finally, we got it, and it was a huge work for restoration because the beautiful neo-Gothic building had been cut into 4 levels, 4 floors, and everything. And there were some partly factories, partly stores, partly there were some small shops. They sold vodka or something like this. So terrible stuff for sacred
for a church,
place.
Right.
Yes, but
and intentionally probably they did these things.
I don't know if it was intentionally. That time, profit and money meant everything for people, so they tried to make money from everything, and vodka was not the worst solution for this. Anyway, and it was a golden era of, I would say, revival of Catholic Church in Russia, great enthusiasm, and that time we put our hopes to the Fatima prophecies and Fatima words said to these 3 small children by Our Lady. And it was a kind of spiritus movens of the resurrection of the Church in Russia, if I may say it like this. And as well, we had that time charismatic leader, Archbishop in Moscow, who was, still is, he's a retired bishop in Minsk now, still is a promoter of Fatima good news. And so that time, since I was an editor-in-chief of Russian National Catholic newspaper, we published a lot of stories, a lot of material about Fatima, and some books even. But the best thing what was done, it seems to me, it was a pilgrimage of one of these blessed statues of Our Lady taken from Fatima all over Russian parishes.
I remember this.
That time we had 4 dioceses, and it was very, very vibrant. And I still dream to publish. There were books for people to write down their witnesses, their grace, about the grace received with the prayers to Our Lady of Fatima, and so on and so forth. And these books are in a safe place. We haven't managed to do it that time, but I think they are a treasure of people's emotions and witnesses that time. Unfortunately, I can't recall the conference in Moscow of such a scale. You participated during the Jubilee year 2017, after the new bishop arrived in Moscow. The profile of Our Lady of Fatima was, I would say, lowered down and minimized. What is a pity for me as a Roman Catholic. But still, from the grassroots, people venerate Our Lady of Fatima. Every 13th day of each month we have a procession with the icon of Our Lady in Moscow Cathedral. And many people are praying in front of this icon. Therefore, I think that the words said more than 100 years ago are alive in the hearts of people, and they encourage them to renounce sin and to confess more often, and to pray for Russia, for their homeland, for their country, asking for conversion. From conversion, and this conversion could be understood in different ways. So sometimes our Orthodox brothers, they say, you Catholics, you want to convert us into Catholic Church, and so. I cannot say that we don't want to do it, but it is not. It is our dream to have one Catholic and Apostolic Church all over the world.
We've been separated for 1,000 years.
Yes, after this great schism. But the main idea is to convert from sin, convert from atheism, convert from these dirty things like abortions.
Right.
Until now, abortions are legal in Russia, and
here.
People they didn't feel this emotion, this great emotion of rejecting this thing. They even do not have understanding that it is a killing of human being.
I think 70 years of mandated atheism does not disappear in the minds of people overnight.
Sure.
We were always part of the message of Fatima, and I always looked at the conversion of Russia as being the conversion from atheism, not necessarily the conversion of the Orthodox people into the Roman Church, although that reconciliation is important, and I hope to see that, if not in our lifetime, but someday, you know. And any reconciliation is not just one coming over, it's an understanding between them, because there are cultural differences.
Yes.
We've been separated for 1,000 years from the Orthodox, half of Christianity. We've been two churches, not two, well, we are, I mean, and then we have been actually two churches since 1054. So it's soon after the conversion, was it 988, when the conversion of, when Christianization of Russia? Well, it was how many years later, not that many years later, when this schism happened. And yes, but then we have so many Byzantine Catholic groups that have come back.
Joining the church.
Right.
Yes.
And they bring such beautiful liturgies in that. I mean, it really is. It's something that we in the Western Church can really should learn to appreciate more, because there's a beautiful culture there.
Yes, and you know, Our Lady of Fatima works well in this dimension, because during this pilgrimage all over Russia, many people told me from different regions, from Siberia, from Kaliningrad region, from the south, Sochi or some other places, when the statue of Our Lady had been brought to parish. Not all the parishes have churches. Sometimes it just brought to the house to venerate, and many Orthodox people came to pray.
Sure.
Despite they do not venerate statues, and but they came to pray and to know more about Fatima. It was very big evangelizing moment in the life of our church. So I think that this veneration is, and Russian people are ready for such kind of veneration, and they would accept the message of Fatima, and this urgent call to convert from atheism. So yes, and I must confess that we are not good enough in doing our job.
Well, I think that's right.
Promoting, in advertising.
We around the world, we Catholics everywhere.
Yeah, but we journalists in Russia, for example, yes, Catholics in Russia, it's formally nobody bans or prohibits these activities like you have in the States, where the statue has a pilgrimage around the States, to schools, to some public places. So, nothing prohibits it in Russia. But I have to confess that we and our bishops and our priests, they, with us, with our help, they slow down things. And it seems to me that we are living in the time of lost opportunities.
Yeah, that's a very good way to put it, and it's sad, because I do know that Archbishop Kondrashevitz particularly, he was on a, we use the term, he was on a roll.
Yeah.
He really wanted to keep things going, and he was, it's unfortunate, I think, that he wasn't there longer, because I think he had a good vision for evangelizing, and maybe it did offend some. That's possible. I'm sure it did offend. I know for a fact that it did. We've discussed this too. And I don't quite understand it. I know that the year after we met you in 2007, I was back in 2008 for the dedication of the church in Kazan, and some history on, of course, as you know, our organization, the Blue Army, then possessed the icon of Kazan.
Yes,
through its history and its beautiful story, how we came into possession of it. We held it in our hotel retreat center, Domus Pachas, for many years, and then fulfilled the promise we had made to only hold it till such days it could be returned to the Russian people and to the Orthodox Church, because that's what it belonged to. And we did in 2004. And I mean, I really feel that was, there was that, and then we also had the story of the Odessa statue, which many people don't know about, but we call it the Odessa statue for a reason. I'll get to that. But as you know, in 1967, Pope Paul VI blessed 25 statues to go around the world, and he entrusted 3 of them to our organization. The one for the United States, the one for Cuba, because again, the communists wouldn't allow a statue down there at the time, and of course Russia. And our promise was we will get these statues to where they belong at the right time. Well, in 2008, when the Church of the Exaltation of the Cross was erected in Kazan, I was very honored to be there as part of that ceremony, and I always found that very interesting, because now we have in the church in Kazan, we enshrined that statue, the one that was our promise to return or to bring to Russia, not return but actually bring there. And again, why it's called the Odessa statue, for those who aren't aware of it, was earlier our founder tried bringing it into the Soviet Union through the port of Odessa in Ukraine, and it was rejected.
They
had to take it back.
Customs, by
customs. They wouldn't allow us to bring the statue into the Soviet Union. So it became known as the Odessa statue after that. That's why to this day it's referred to as such.
But you mentioned the return of the icon.
Yes.
I remember those days in 2004.
Exactly.
And I remember some collisions around this icon, because it was Cardinal Kasper who brought it to Moscow.
Right.
And we Moscow Catholics, we knew in advance that he is flying with the evening flight, and the handover of the icon will be next day. So we wrote a letter to Nuncio, to some other, to the Pontifical Council for promoting Christian unity, to allow us to put the icon in the cathedral and to pray in front of this icon before the handover. And we got very polite but very negative response. And the reason was, look, we are bringing this icon to the Patriarch Alexei at that time, and we consider that first eyes to see the icon in Russia should be the eyes of the Patriarch. Okay, I couldn't understand this argument, but as a very obedient Catholic, I said, okay, so the icon will be in the luggage of the Cardinal, in spending night not in the church with prayers, but in his apartment. Anyway, let it be. But when the icon arrived, I was in the airport, Sheremetyevo, but the very first eyes to see the icon were the eyes of customs officer.
Yeah, very interesting.
Because the lady came to evaluate, to see if this is what has been declared, arrived in, and it was a kind of, I would say, joke that yes, you
a non-believer would
yes,
be the first to say.
It was a kind of joke but finally it was a very nice ceremony. It was a great act in Kremlin. It was we Russian Catholics, we are very, very happy that the icon is given back. And thanks to Blue Army for doing this.
Promise kept is what it was.
Yes, and it was very remarkable that the Patriarch decided to give the icon to Kazan. Later on, yes, it was up to him to decide where to put the icon, and therefore Kazan Catholics and pilgrims could see the icon and pray in front of the icon.
Yes.
Until now, it is kept in Kazan. So it's very good story, and I think that this icon as well works well, if I may to say this, for the unity of Christians.
Oh, I agree. And of course now it's in the new cathedral that they built in Kazan. I haven't seen that. My hope was and still is to get there to see it. Present politics are a little difficult, but that these things come and go, as we well know. But I was very touched when I went to Kazan. Now here's a city that is very much Muslim as well as and I found at the time there was a mix of, and it was regulated certainly by the government. There were 28 Orthodox churches, 28 mosques in that town.
Yes.
Okay, and then we were there for the dedication of the one and only Catholic Church, which in fact was built by the Muslim mayor of Kazan.
Yes.
So I mean, there is a lot of people talk about the issues in the world. I think they live pretty well over it. I think they understand coexistence pretty well. But if my history is correct, that does go back to the time of the Russians and the Tartars and their trade, and they even in those days there was evidence of Christianity in that area brought by the traders, the Russian traders certainly, but a fact that I think my feeling is that commerce was very important. They weren't going to let the religious differences keep them from getting together, and I thought to that day. But we were very honored to be part of that delegation that went. And so happy because now you have the cathedral with the beautiful icon of Kazan, the storied icon of Kazan. And there's more if you want more information on the icon, come to our website, and now we have a lot of information on the history of the icon of Kazan. But also down the street is the Odessa statue. So you have the Catholic Church with the Odessa statue, the icon of Kazan at the Orthodox Cathedral, and both of those represent promises kept by our apostolate, by our founder, and those who succeeded him. These were gifts because Russia and the East was such a big part of the message of Fatima, and this is why in Fatima, at our hotel retreat center Domus Pachas, we have the only Byzantine chapel in all of Fatima. And people say, why did they build a Byzantine chapel there? Well, look at the message of Fatima. It's all about, it's to the east, and today actually, because there's a very large expatriate Ukrainian community living in Fatima, they have been there for a number of years, that has become their Sunday parish. Because it's the only place they and we're very happy to accommodate that. That was the Bishop of Fatima that asked us, could we open that chapel for them? Without question.
But I know that many Russians, Catholics for sure, but also Orthodox and even non-believers, they visit Fatima.
They do.
A friend of mine who is in the States for many years, and we just contacted recently, and I told him that I'm going to this Blue Army shrine here in the States, and he immediately recalled and he said, look, I've been to Fatima. I never seen the place better, spiritually better, more peaceful place in the world. Yes, and he is Orthodox. He works for the Voice of America, and he's almost American, I would say. But yes, I think that it is still, despite all these pandemic events, still the most attractive place for pilgrimages.
Well, very much so.
Especially if you take into consideration then Santiago de Compostela is nearby, so it makes this enclave very attractive.
Well, you do the Portuguese Camino. You start in Fatima, then you go up, begin the Camino, and then go all the way up to Santiago. That's the short Camino. That's for people like me.
Maybe it's the shortest.
It's not the one that starts in France and comes across. As you know, my wife Dorothy wants to do this. She said, that's on the bucket list. I said, honey, look at the calendar. I'm getting older and older here. So we'll see if we ever do it, or she may do it sometime. But it is a beautiful thing. And it was very much the part of it, and especially that area, the western part of the Iberian Peninsula, because you have Portugal, and then you go straight north into Galicia, which is that's part of Spain is different than to a great degree. You go all the way up to Santiago, and culturally they have a very similar culture over there, and they're very great. I know a lot of people that have done the Camino, that Camino, the short. I call the short Camino.
I know the priest from Slovakia. When he was 50, he wanted to celebrate his birthday in Santiago de Compostela, and he went by foot from Slovakia.
Wow.
From Bratislava.
Wow. That's something.
And he did this way to the extent it was possible. But before going to Santiago de Compostela, he went to Fatima.
Yeah.
So he did
around like this, then, yes. Very, very nice.
this turn.
Well, if you have the time, I guess that's the biggest thing, the time and the ability to do it. It's
Yeah, sure.
it's a
But
beautiful
he
thing.
was very much dedicated to do this, and he did.
But that's the concept of pilgrimage. We, of course, run our pilgrimages through our Ave Maria Pilgrimage Tours, which is a company of ours. And by bringing people to the holy places of the world. I mean, that's important. That's why, again, it come in 2019. I had all these plans now to start reinvigorating the trips back to Eastern Europe. Of course, we were doing Poland, go into Russia. Well, again, you know.
You're welcome. You're welcome in Russia.
We'll be
and
back.
Despite of all these terrible events, I would think even pilgrimages from other countries are more needed, more welcome to just to see how people live and to pray near Orthodox or icons and in the Orthodox shrines to pray for peace.
And well, that's exactly it. And I think that the present circumstance, and we'll get a little more into that as we get into the show, and of course your situation too. But I think you're right. I found such a camaraderie with the people in my trips there. There's such, we all share some. The thing about our Catholicism, it's universal. And the fact that we could be of such different cultures and backgrounds, and of course, the American-Russian thing with the Cold War. I wonder how many actual Americans and actual Russians were really fighting the Cold War. Okay,
it is a construct of politicians.
It is a construct of politicians. Now, again, we're responsible for the people who represent us, so we can't throw that out necessarily. But you're right. I don't think the average person understands the dynamics, and when you start dealing with people in your commonality, for example, our Catholic faith, it's not much different wherever you go. People want the same things because that's why we're, if we are practicing our faith, we know what we're to be striving for. And,
And we have the same sacraments with Orthodox Church.
Right.
The same liturgy with some small things changed.
Yeah.
The same saints. We have the same creed.
Yes.
So I think that sooner or later we will be one. We will be united.
I think so. I think keep in mind the Orthodox Church never lost apostolic succession. Okay,
Yes.
So they do have valid orders from their bishops to their priests and such, which is what the Protestants don't have. They've separated themselves from the line of the apostles. Now, people argue, well, yes, by our standard, they're illicit, and they are, from our Roman Catholic position. But illicit and invalid are two different things. These are still valid orders coming, from the apostles, and I think that's why the Orthodox churches, primarily the Greeks and the Russians are the most prominent or dominant ones, have kept their the basics. Okay, we did lose many things, I guess. And culturally, they'll never come together totally. That's just not the way it happens. But I truly believe that the fact that the grace of God still comes down through those ordinations, and we have to hope.
Sure,
I did have a conversation with Archbishop Manini, who is I don't know if he still is, but he was the papal nuncio to Russia when I was there, and he had his secretary was there. We were at the table, and his comment was, "What do you want to accomplish in Russia?" It was a little accusatory, to be honest with you. I said, "Well, I said, and then his secretary jumped right in. Of course, he was Italian. We had a nice connection because that's where we sat and had dinner together. But he goes, "The Russian people don't like Fatima," he goes, "because it talks about the conversion of Russia." I said, "Well, we're not here to convert people away from the Orthodox faith. We're here to help them with their Christianity. You're here at this church." This was when we were in Kazan. For that very reason, I said, "You know how many people there are from Poland and Lithuania and Belarus like yourself, and these are you're Russians, but you're ethnically Catholic. As your Catholicism comes from your background in Belarus, right? That's and I said, so don't you think that these people should have what we're offering and trying to?" Yes. And like it was like a stamp of approval at that point. In other words, we weren't there trying to go to the Orthodox Cathedral and get up on the housetops. No, I mean, hopefully someday we can come together and be part of that. But I think there's a misunderstanding. I think there's a real misunderstanding, very much on the part of the Orthodox, that they're very offended.
To be clarified, to be explained.
Yeah.
To be to be really clearly articulated. Yes, but you mentioned the ethnical Catholic. In Russia, we try to avoid ethnical connotations because it fits into the concept of so-called canonical territory, which Russian Orthodox Church confessed, and they keep this principle that Russia is our canonical territory, and in Lithuania, in Poland, is the canonical territory of Roman Catholic Church, and it is like to divide people and to sentence people to be, for Poles to be Catholic, for Russians to be Orthodox, despite of their free will. Yeah. Therefore, in Russia, we try to avoid this connotation. We never say, I'm Polish, therefore I'm Catholic. It's not true. In fact, yes, I was Polish. My parents baptized me when I was a child. But this presupposition, this condition, doesn't give Russian people a chance, an option to become Catholic.
Right.
Yeah. Therefore, we, as following Vladimir Solovyov, famous Russian philosopher who joined the Universal Church, we consider that the basic thing is free will of every man, and every man is able and should be given the possibility to join the faith he considers to be true. You might not know that in Russian Empire, till 1905, there was a law prohibiting ethnically Russian people to convert into other faith. Therefore, prominent Russian intellectuals, aristocrats, if they converted to Catholicism, like Duke Gagarin or some other, like Chadaev, they had to emigrate to leave Russia, because the punishment was that all your property will be confiscated. It was punished till 1905 in Russian Empire.
Right.
So this determination, ethnical determination, if you're Russian, you are supposed to be Orthodox. It works on the base of this legal framework from Russian Empire, and we try to do our best to break this rule and this logic frame in the minds of people. And we have per year around 200 people joining the Universal Church, despite they have been baptized in Orthodox Church. And we have some cases when Catholic people, they choose Orthodox Christianity. One of them, Italian gentleman who was very active in Focolare movement, he came to Russia. He fell in love with Russian Orthodox Church, with this, with liturgy, with everything. Yeah. And he became a deacon, and then he was ordained as a priest in Russian Orthodox Church. His name is Giovanni Guaita. Now he's Father Ioan. But it's okay, we tolerate it, because we respect the free will of every person. This is the basic point. Therefore, we try to avoid ethnical things within Catholicism. And there were some cases in Moscow where Polish babushkas, Polish people. They demanded the Polish language is the language of our faith. So they were strongly in favor of, yes, we have a Mass in Polish, but most of liturgies, most of Holy Mass is celebrated in Russia. Around 90% they are celebrated in Russia. Most of Russian Catholics, despite if they have or do not have Polish, Lithuanian, German, Ukrainian origins, they have Russian passports. So it is Russian Catholic Church when it comes to nationality and when it comes to ethnicity.
Well, I think that everybody is more comfortable in their own language, especially in their heritage and language. I know my grandmother, who was an Italian immigrant, she would always go to the Italian Mass at St. Anthony's Church in Chicago. That's where we were from.
It's a great to extend one you not to demand that this is the only language.
And that's exactly it. She did it, but the rest of the Masses were always in, well, probably initially in Latin, of course, but then, of course, in English. And my Polish mother-in-law, she's Polish-born, and she has a church in Chicago where she goes to her Polish Mass every Sunday, which is great. I mean, but again, that's not what the church is, not just in one language, but there's English.
Yeah, but I must confess that I have sentiments, I have nostalgia to my language, because I'm Polish, born in Belarus. So being here in the campus at Pittsburgh University, I had a church walking distance, so on Sundays I went there, but on weekdays I just watched on YouTube the transmission of Polish Mass from my native town.
Very nice.
And during my birthday, my sister ordered the Mass for my health and for me. Yeah. And I follow the Mass with great compassion, with great emotions. It's great to follow the Mass in your own language, but for most Russians, their language is Russian. Yeah. What is very good. And foreign priests, we are grateful to many foreign priests that are still serving in Russia for their understanding. They try to learn Russian as soon as possible.
Oh, sure. And it's hard. It's a difficult language
It's
to
difficult,
learn.
but being able not only to celebrate Mass, but also to confess people. And you need deeper knowledge of language to confess people.
To converse.
And one of the most outstanding priests, he was appointed recently to be a parish priest for one of the biggest parishes in Moscow, St. Louis Parish. He's from Mexico. He's Mexican. He lived I will explain later on why I said it in the past. I have been living for 15 years in Russia, perfectly speaking Russian, knowing Russian culture, everything. And he was very active. And after the beginning of the war, he was announced as a persona non grata in Russia. And he had to leave the country. Yeah. And I won't say he was very much politically involved in protest, no. But his homilies were very Catholic. Yes. He referred to the Catholic social teaching. He explained what is a just war. Mm-hmm. And from the homilies, in very strict, I would say, theological things, not touching political issues, it was very clear. Yes. His stand against the war and his call for Catholics to pray. Yeah. And in his parish, every day there is a prayer. But he had to leave because of this decision. He didn't have Russian citizenship. He had just the green card in Russia, like permanent residence. And this was cancelled one day. Yeah. That's it.
And I want to talk more about that. We're gonna end this here now, and then we want to do part 2 of this interview, and I want to talk a little more about what's happened in this new era. After the new era, this new era was coming now, and how to navigate it in your own situation. So thank you for Victor. Thank you for being here. Thank everybody for joining us on this podcast today, and please subscribe to our podcast. Thank you, and God bless you.
God bless you. All the best.